Epictetus, a great Stoic philosopher, once said, "The key is to only hang out with people who make you feel good and bring out your best." You've probably heard the saying, "You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." Today, we're going to look at this idea through a stern view. We will talk about the 7 kinds of people who can get in the way of your growth in Stoic thought and how to deal with them. Before we start, I'd appreciate it if you liked the video so you could help me keep sharing Stoic ideas. If you haven't already, you should subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. 1. Someone you should stay away from is a complainer. Person. Number 1. The one who always has something bad to say. Everyone has a friend, family member, or co-worker who always seems to find something wrong with everything. They never miss a chance to complain about something, whether it's the weather, their job, or the food at a popular place. You might be thinking, why should I care? I can just ignore them. Well, that's easier to say than to do. Constantly being around this kind of bad news is bad for your mental health. It's like having a leaky tap that slowly drains your mental energy. Stoicism tells us to stop focusing on problems and instead look for ways to fix them. For instance, say you're working on a job with someone who always complains. Every meeting ends up being a tiring round of complaints, with no good ideas being shared. What is it? The team's morale goes down, you get distracted from finding real answers, and you're likely to become less interested in the job, and maybe even in life in general. So how does being calm help us deal with someone who always complains? There are different things you can do. First, try to spend as little time as possible with this person. If you can't do that, maybe because they're a family member or co-worker, you can try to mentally separate yourself from them while they talk. Think of their complaints as a storm that is loud and disturbing, but only lasts for a short time and can't move the rock. That is your inner peace. Your third choice is to steer the talk toward solutions or to change the topic to something more helpful. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This timeless piece of Stoic advice tells us to take care of our mental peace and not let the negativity of chronic complainers take us off the Stoic road of courage and virtue. Number 2. People to stay away from if you don't want trouble. The second type of person is one who is drawn to trouble. Imagine that your life is a ship traveling through calm seas and you are the captain. But then you run into the drama generator, a whirlwind that pulls people into trouble. This person seems to always be in the middle of a crisis, disagreement, or controversy, and like a tornado, they can pull you into their swirl of chaos. At first, you might be drawn to the drama magnet's energy and mistake it for joy or passion. But you'll soon learn that being in their area of influence is like steering a ship through a storm, hard work and dangerous. Dealing with drama makers is hard because their problems can sometimes feel like yours. Their confusion is contagious, and you might find yourself in fights that you didn't even start. Let's look at a real-world example. You have a friend who often fights with other people in your group of friends. Today, they don't talk to Sarah, but they will talk to Tom tomorrow. Your friend comes to you for advice, but you see that this keeps happening over and over. Then, because you tried to help, you find yourself in a fight with Sarah or Tom. You could use a method called reflective listening in this case. Instead of telling them what to do or taking a side, repeat what they say. For example, if they say, "I can't believe Sarah said that about me," you could say, "So you feel betrayed by what Sarah said." This lets you offer emotional support without getting caught up in the drama yourself. Another way, which may seem counterintuitive, is to make yourself deliberately unreachable. Stoicism tells us to value our time very much, and sometimes that means we can't help other people with their problems. especially if they keep happening over and over again. Turn off your phone during certain times, set aside time to focus on your work or personal growth, and let people know that they shouldn't bother you during these times. Seneca said that the only way to be happy is to enjoy the moment without worrying about the future. This can be especially helpful when working with people who like to cause trouble. Instead of worrying about what the next problem will be, focus on the present, where you have power. Enjoy your life and don't let someone else's problems get in the way. Make it a point to steer your ship quietly and avoid whirlpools that could get in the way of your journey to personal growth and peace. Number 3. The naysayer is a type of person you should avoid. The third type of person is the one who says no. Imagine you are an artist who is working on a board. Each stroke of the brush gives your picture more color, depth, and life. Here comes the doubter. They walk into your office, take one look at your work, and then start to criticize it right away. Are you sure about that color? It doesn't look real. You know that most artists don't make it, right? Their words start to dull your bright canvas like lines of gray paint. This is not the kind of positive feedback that can be helpful. Instead, it's a constant feeling of worry and bad feelings. For example, let's say you're looking forward to starting a new job. You've done your study, talked to experts, and maybe even taken a few introductory classes. When you tell a naysayer how excited you are about something, they quickly come up with all the reasons why it won't work. The market is too competitive. Do you have the right skills? What if you fail? Soon, their worries start to feel like your own, and the sure vision you had starts to shake. So, what do you do when someone tells you no, especially if it's someone close to you? One unusual but effective way is to ask them for help instead of just telling them about your plans or goals. When you put someone in a role as a consultant, they are less likely to attack your ideas directly and may give you more helpful feedback. A practice called positive confrontation is another way to change the way things are going. Instead of taking on their bad feelings, ask them to come up with answers. If they say, "You'll never be able to switch careers at this point," you can say, "That's an interesting point of view. How do you think someone could change careers successfully then?" This will not only stop them from being negative, but it will also lead to a more positive conversation. Epictetus, a Stoic philosopher, said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." Listening doesn't mean taking in everyone's bad vibes. It means figuring out what's important and what's just noise. When people who don't believe in you start to add shades of doubt to your picture, take a step back, listen, think, and keep coloring your life with the colors that speak to you. Don't let anyone turn your colorful creation into a dull gray scenery. 4. The victim is a type of person to avoid. The 4th type of person is the victim. Suppose that life were a game of chess. Each player has the same pieces and the same goal, which is to capture the king of the other player. You make plans, give up some things, and take some risks. The target, on the other hand, puts all of their bad moves on the board, the pieces, or even their opponent. In their minds, they are always in checkmate, not because of what they do, but because of something outside of themselves. Their story is a never-ending tale of bad luck, with them as the powerless main character. My boss doesn't like me, so I can't move up at work, or I can't get in shape because I have bad genes. It's important to remember that some people do face real problems and trials, but the person we're talking about uses their situation as an excuse forever and won't take responsibility for anything they do or don't do. You might get caught up in their story, maybe as a supporting figure who always has to come to their aid. Let's say you've spent hours listening to a friend say that their ex-partners are to blame for all of their bad relationships. Not only does this waste your time, but it can also make you feel like a victim and lead you to act that way in your own life. So, what should you do when you meet a victim? It might be tempting to try to save them by giving them endless help and mental support, but the Stoics would warn against this. They would tell you to set up a clear limit to protect your mental health. You could use a method called compassionate detachment, in which you are kind, but don't try to save people from problems they need to figure out on their own. Listen to them, but don't try to solve all of their problems for them. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is to be different from the person who did the wrong." If you find yourself getting caught up in the victim's story, fight the urge to become a victim yourself. Take charge of your own game board, make your moves, and remember that in the chess game of life, being stuck in checkmate is often a choice, not a fate. Keep your pieces going forward, make sacrifices when it makes sense, and don't play for payback or pity, but to learn and get better. 5. The toxic positivist is a type of person you should avoid. Number 5 on the list of types of people is the poison optimist. This person is known to you. They always seem to be full of sunshine, rainbows, and emojis. They're the ones who tell you to just be happy when you're having a hard time, brushing off your feelings and experiences with a wave of sparkly positivity. Picture your life as a beautiful garden. There are flowers, but there are also weeds and bugs. A poisonous optimist, on the other hand, refuses to pay attention to anything that isn't a rose in bloom. If you have aphids on your leaves, just think about the flowers and don't let bad things into your garden, they would say. Even though it sounds good, their method can make you feel unimportant and out of touch with reality. Imagine that you are going through a hard breakup. You're sad, confused, and trying to get your feelings in order. What does the poisonous positivism say? There are plenty of fish in the sea. Just smile and be happy. This kind of overly positive thinking doesn't take into account how complicated emotions are and how hard life can be. How do you take care of your yard without having toxic positivists crush it with their good vibes only stickers? One way to deal with them is to get them to talk about both light and dark things. If they say, "Look on the bright side, at least you're healthy," you could say, "Yes, I'm thankful for my health, but it's okay for me to be upset about this particular issue. I can feel both at the same time." You can also use what psychologists call emotional granularity, which is the ability to feel and tell the difference between a wide range of good and bad feelings. When a toxically positive person tells you to just be happy, take a moment to recognize and name your complicated feelings. "I'm a little sad today because of X, and that's okay," can be a freeing statement. Seneca, a Stoic philosopher, once said, "True happiness is to understand our duties toward God and man, to enjoy the present without worrying about the future." Notice the balance between knowing duties, which aren't always nice, and enjoying the present. A Stoic attitude isn't just about focusing on the good or the bad. It's about accepting the complexity of life with calmness. So the next time a toxically positive person throws confetti on your carefully kept garden, take a step back. Remember that a garden needs both sun and rain to grow. Accept your full range of emotions and keep caring for your garden with the richness and complexity it deserves. Type of person to stay away from. Number 6. The manipulator. 6th type of person, the trickster. Think of your life as a story for a movie. You are the main character, and you have an idea of how your story should go, including where the twists should happen, who your friends and teachers should be, and how the story should end. Comes the manipulator, the unseen director who changes your script without you even knowing it. One day you find that your story has gone off track. The trickster knows how to play with other people's emotions or minds. They might try to get you to do something that helps them by being nice, making you feel bad, or even lying to you. You might have a friend who always gets you to pay for dinner by saying something like, "You know, I've been having a rough month and you're so successful, it wouldn't mean much to you, but it would make my day better." Over time, you realize that your generosity has been taken advantage of, but it's hard to tell them because they made it sound like a favor to a friend in need. It can be hard to deal with a liar. One way to stop them is to do what some experts call fogging. This means agreeing with the trickster when they say something true, but not letting them get to you emotionally. If they say, "You've been doing so well, you should pay for dinner," you could say, "You're right, I have been doing well, but let's split the bill like we always do." Another option is to make clear rules and stick to them. Learn to say no in a firm way if the manipulator wants you to give them money or do things you don't want to do. Keep your voice and words cool and clear. "I can't lend money, but I'm here to offer emotional support," sets a limit while keeping the friendship. Epictetus, who was influenced by Stoicism, said, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." The manipulator feeds on your expected responses. They use your kindness, your guilt, or your need to be liked to get what they want. By picking a different response, you are taking back control of your story. So, if you find a trickster in your life, keep in mind that you have the pen. Your story is yours to write. And even though it may have a lot of different players, the main character, you, should always be led by your own values and choices. Take back control of your life story and don't let anyone else write it for you. The time vampire is the seventh type of person to avoid. Seventh type of person, the time monster. Think of the things you do every day as a carefully composed music. Each instrument stands for a job or a promise, and when they are all played together, they make a balance. But then the time vampire joins in and screeches out of tune, drowning out your theme and making your beautiful piece sound like a bunch of different sounds that don't go together. The time vampire might not always be bad. In fact, they may seem pretty harmless. It could be a coworker who constantly stops you with silly questions, breaking up your day and making it hard to get anything done. Or it could be a friend who asks you to a lot of social events you don't want to go to, making you feel like you have to go and taking up a lot of your time and energy. These exchanges might not seem important at the time, but when added up, they can cause a lot of trouble. So, how do you make sure a time vampire doesn't mess up your symphony? One good approach is the Pomodoro technique, which is a way to manage your time by dividing your work into 25-minute chunks that you break up with short breaks. During these times, you let people know that they shouldn't bother you. This sets a limit that keeps people from cutting into your most busy times. If you're dealing with a social time vampire, remember that it's not only okay to say no, it's important for your health. Instead of making complicated reasons, just say, "Thanks for the invite, but I can't make it." If you say no to an invitation, it doesn't mean you don't like the person. Instead, it shows that you have your own wants and goals. Seneca said, "Life is long enough if you live it well." Stoicism teaches us that time is one of our most valuable tools and that we should use it wisely. It's the canvas on which we paint the picture of our lives, so we should be very picky about who and what gets a brushstroke. Make sure that each sound, instrument, and song in the big picture of your life fits with your bigger goal. Don't let a cacophonous time thief mess up your music with their arrival. Hold the baton tightly and lead your life with purpose, making sure that every moment is a note well played in your perfect creation, reflection on who we are. As we come to the end of today's look at the people who can get in the way of Stoic grit and knowledge, let's not forget that self-awareness is the most important thing. It's easy to see these types in other people, but it's harder and more revealing to look at yourself. Are you maybe doing one of these things in someone else's life by accident? Remember that Stoicism isn't just about getting along in the world. It's also about getting to know ourselves and getting better. If today's conversation has made you realize something, have an epiphany, or even just think about yourself, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Write down your ideas and share your experiences, and let's have a conversation that makes us all better.